Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. Of course, there are no shortage of trolls all up on Twebernets, especially on Twitter. Definitely no shortage there. And a lot of these trolls say nonsense BS specifically about XRP. And there are a number of people within our XRP community who just in response to viewing that these trolls exist and are saying these things, they just have this attitude of, we in the XRP community should just shut up and take it. We don't want to highlight these people. We don't want to debate with these people. They're beneath us. We shouldn't even address them. Moon Family Sedan, how dare you even respond to the vile tripe that they have to say all up on Twebernets. I think that is a terrible approach to dealing with these people. I think it's a terrible approach to life in general, to just ignore people who are saying untruths, sometimes intentional lies. Sometimes people are just wrong. I think it's a very limp-wristed, weak way to go through life. Just not worrying about it. Or thinking that, no, we're not going to do it. And this idea that to respond to them somehow empowers them. You're putting their idiocy on display for the public when you respond to them. You need to let the best idea win. There are people who will state that, look, if you're sharing their nonsense ideas, when other people see it, they're just going to think that thing's true. And I'm like, tell me this. Who in your life are you talking about? Is it yourself? You're afraid that you're going to be tricked by these idiots who are saying nonsense? Because I'll tell you what, if they've got a very poor untrue idea and I have a very good true idea and you can see both of them, are you going to believe the bad fake one? Like, who are you worried about here? It just doesn't make a lick of sense here. So to get you caught up to speed, there's been more nonsense from fake Toshi, who is Craig Wright. He claims to be the creator of Bitcoin. Clearly he is not. This guy is an outright liar and a disaster of a creature. And David Schwartz had a well-reasoned argument that he delivered to Craig Wright and a guy named Calvin Ayre, who is a billionaire, literally, it turns out. Just found that out today. And he believes that Craig Wright is, in fact, Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. And Calvin Ayre and Craig Wright are just terrible humans. And I want to share with you what David Schwartz had to say to these people. And then there's an XRP community member who I just respectfully disagree. This is not an attack on him, just to be super duper clear. I'm sharing my idea. He clearly feels different than me. And anybody that does, that's fine. Articulate that to me. I'm not offended. Totally cool. So this is me articulating why I think that approach to life, and certainly here, is wrong. And if you disagree, that's fine. So I just want to be clear that this is not any sort of attack or anything like that. I just want talking about stuff like this because I think we should address these problems head on. And that's why I want to talk about this. But so anyway, David Schwartz, I'm going to share with you what he had to say. And then this XRP community member was like, David, why are you even engaging with these people? And then David had a response. I had a response. And then former Ripple employee Matt Hamilton had some stuff to say. And I'm going to share with you all of it. But before going further and sharing additional specifics, I do want to be clear that I do not have a financial background of any kind. I'm not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. So there's some tweets from David Schwartz, Ripple CTO, co-creator of the XRP Ledger, on your screen. And these are screen grabs shared by XRP community member Stefan Huber. And I can't see the full thread because Craig Wright, fake Toshi, blocked me, and then I blocked him back because that's my policy. If somebody blocks me and I find out, I just block him back right away. But he blocked me because I used the name fake Toshi. He didn't seem to like that. But he was being, in my defense, he was being an unreasonable douche, as is like par for the course with this guy. But anyway, so through context, you can figure out what David Schwartz was talking about here. It's about Bitcoin and scaling layer 1 technology, so on and so forth. So here's what he said in the two tweets that are on your screen right now. David Schwartz wrote to David Schwartz. He didn't write to himself. David Schwartz wrote to Craig Wright, and he said, I think that's a reasonable argument. There are other people in the thread too, so I don't know if it was directly to him. So there are other people here. But he said, I think that's a reasonable argument. There are two main reasons I don't agree with it. One is that I think nearly all layer 1s will scale if there is enough demand, whether through federation, rollups, higher layers, or other ways. The main reason I don't agree is that I don't think the layer 1 needs to scale. It needs to exist and be usable, but that will be sufficient to push the vast majority of traffic to more efficient mechanisms. The vast majority of Bitcoin transactions are already off-chain. Yeah, and by the way, I buy into that narrative, and I hope it's correct. I don't have 100% certainty, but I do think that's right. And that's why I think it's more likely than not that Bitcoin actually is here to stay. As inferior as it is layer 1 technologically, it may not matter, even for payments. I mean, because if you're just talking about using layer 2 technology to have a representation of Bitcoin, and if you have something that's tokenized, fully backed by Bitcoin, well, Bitcoin's already been adopted to a major degree. So it's certainly reasonable to suspect that may be all it takes, actually. Don't know for sure, but I think it's perfectly reasonable. Now, Calvin Ayre, who is this guy here? For those of you looking at your screen, this is the guy. This is his website, Ayre Group. That's him right there, and he's a billionaire. Apparently, he made his billionaire fortune by starting some time ago some online gambling casino or something to that effect. I don't know. I don't really want to know his life story. It was something to that effect, though. Now he's ridiculously wealthy. Well, Calvin Ayre jumped in here and decided to just like rip into David Schwartz. And so, mind you, David Schwartz had just articulated some reasonable things. And then Calvin Ayre responds and says, "This is why you should stop talking. All of this can be done on-chain. The tech has existed since 2009 when Craig released Bitcoin." Oh, that's hilarious. Then he says, "In-chain has bits of it patented now. Just shut up and watch since you clearly don't understand." That's right, sit down and shut up, peasant. That's what Calvin Ayre has to say to David Schwartz. And he actually believes that Craig Wright created Bitcoin. I disagree with you. I'm not gonna engage in the arena of ideas. I'm gonna tell you that you should shut up because you don't understand it. So David Schwartz responded to that with a pretty reasonable approach, and he said, "You are responding to a reasoned argument with vague gibberish mixed with personal insults, just as Craig does. I can see why you two get along so well." Exactly. And so this type of behavior in humans, when I observe it, I have no respect for people that behave like this. It's disgusting and repulsive, and they should be ashamed of themselves for behaving like this as adults. I do not get along with people that behave like this. I'm okay with people being wrong. I'm wrong. I get stuff. Everybody gets stuff wrong. That's fine. I want intellectual honesty, and I want people to behave as adults. That's what I want. The world doesn't always work like that. I get it, but I'm just saying what I want and what's preferable. And these people are just despicable, intellectually dishonest people. So Craig Wright responded to David Schwartz and said, "Yes, I know. Statements of fact and generally outside of your ability. You are not responding here with anything other than insults." My gosh. So this is where Stefan Huber, an XRP community member, jumped in and said, "It really hurts to see David Schwartz like that. With all due respect, but David, don't you see that you're feeding diamonds to pigs? I have rarely seen such embarrassing, toxic people as Craig and that Calvin clown. They don't want to have a meaningful discussion like you, not at all." And so the part where I do agree with Stefan Huber is that Craig and Calvin are terrible and they're obviously clowns. They don't want to have real conversation. They'll pretend like they do. I don't know who they're tricking. Anybody that's being honest will admit that these people are not interested in getting to the truth. They're interested in preserving their false narrative. That's of paramount importance to them. That's what's going on. And so at this point, David Schwartz responded to Stefan Huber, and he said, "What is the alternative exactly? If you don't engage with them, their nonsense goes unchallenged. The only strategy I know of is to keep exposing their behavior for what it is." And so I'll say here, again, could not agree more. It's exactly the right approach. Now, Stefan Huber, though, again, doesn't agree, and that's fine. Nothing against him. I'm not attacking him. I just respectfully disagree. And he says, "If they were serious people, I would agree with you. In this case, you could just watch their demise." Well, David Schwartz responded with the following: "I do believe that there are a few serious threats that they pose. One is Craig using Calvin's money to sue people outside the United States for taking reasonable positions on important matters of public concern related to Bitcoin." So that's a very legitimate concern. And on top of that, If there are really bad ideas out there, and if there are outright lies out there, and they're not being challenged, if you're somebody who's coming in as a blank slate, all you are aware of is the lie. That's all you can see. If you're just hanging out on Twitter, this is unfolding, you're like, I don't know, and where do I go to even find out? It's not always easy to do your own research. Yeah, we have this saying in the world of crypto, do your own research, and fair enough, to whatever degree, but it's not that easy, because then it's like, okay, where do I go? Who do I trust? How do I have confidence even doing my own research that I'm doing it right? And so it's a lot more complex than just, do your own research, peasant, like no, there's more to it than that. And there is a way to do it. I'm just saying it's daunting. And I thought it was daunting when I jumped into crypto in 2017. And so who do you trust? And this is why you need to have people go back and forth, because if you watch two people debate, you can figure out who has the better arguments. It usually doesn't take that long to figure it out. So I responded to David Schwartz, and I shared the following. I agree with you, and I've also been accused of giving exposure to liars by challenging them. I believe liars, especially if public figures, must be challenged. The idea that we should remain silent while such individuals continue to influence people is a wimpy approach to life. Even if people aren't lying and they're just wrong on a topic, it's worth challenging their ideas. The goal doesn't need to be to change their mind. The goal is to make sure that people who happen upon the conversation are exposed to another point of view. I know this resonates with Matt Hamilton too, the ultimate XRP FUD warrior. Now, so I'll say this. For those of you who are on Twitter in the XRP community, you've probably seen Matt Hamilton on pretty much a daily basis going after all the nonsense garbage BS that trolls are saying about XRP. He attacks it relentlessly. I don't know where he gets the energy for this, but I admire it. I really admire it. I mean that. It's impressive. And he just fights and fights and fights, and he's right. And then you get the garbage BS responses, and then they'll just insult him and most of the time, or a lot of the time. And sometimes you get some really, truly interesting debates, and I've highlighted some of them over the years on my channel even. But most of it's just like trolls being trolls, But again, it's not to change the troll's mind. It's not why, because I've talked to Matt about this before, and he has the same approach as me. He's like, it's not necessarily change their mind. It's for everybody else that's watching who wants to actually learn. Okay, you need to let the ideas compete against one another. That's the best way. It's not to shut down people. You don't want to, because you don't want to silence bad ideas. You want them to be challenged. And you also don't want bad ideas to just be able to live freely by themselves. You want to challenge them. So it's not about shutting them down or allowing them to live by themselves. Let ideas fight each other. That's it. And don't attack the people, ideally. Now, in the case of clowns like, Fake Toshi and Calvinaire, they're despicable people. They attack. And it is what it is. Let me take some water. Sorry, folks. I'm still getting over my sickness. And I've been, sorry, I don't know if you can tell, I've been sucking on a cough drop. It's the only way that I can make it through these room temperature jams today. But it's just at this phase of this sickness where it's just like cough, cough, cough constantly. But anyway, so Matt Hamilton jumped in here because I tagged him, and he wrote the following. He had some interesting insight because he was talking about, because he used to work at Ripple again. He was talking about Ripple's approach to trolls, or lack thereof, frankly. So check this out. This is interesting. He said, indeed, and this was what I brought up on a Twitter Spaces today. It starts small and gets bigger. Someone recounted a well-known Bitcoiner speaking to a journalist on TV making blatantly false claims about XRP. I honestly believe that they, in this case, were not malicious, but they were so convinced of their position due to being told it by others. And so from a random Twitter crypto influencer to a bigger influencer to a national news journalist who agreed with the false statements as they, understandably, don't have the knowledge to realize. So let's pause and say, do you see the problem here? And so when people say, we shouldn't give these people the attention, shouldn't give them the time of the day, just shut up and take it, everybody. Just take it. Bend over, grab the ankles, you just take it. I'm like, no, absolutely not. You respond to this stuff. Matt Hamilton's got the right approach here. And then Hamilton says, I spend way too long arguing with idiots like Craig on Twitter about XRP FUD. I know they are not going to change their mind. They have too much vested in their wrong position. But there is a chance, number one, others might see it and question what they've been told. And number two, others might use some of my arguments in their own debate with others to refute FUD. Just like I learned from David and Tiff and the likes when I first got into XRP. I hopefully have helped inform others so that they can have effective conversations about XRP. One thing I will say, David aside, I think one party that really doesn't understand how this misinformation spreads or its impact is Ripple. It was something I tried to get others to understand whilst I was there. And I did a few individuals, but as a corporation, they don't. I think their view is, but it's just some random on Twitter. It doesn't matter. They don't understand that it amplifies and becomes self-referential. He says, I'm really not sure you can ever fix it now. There's just too much misinformation out there. And then he shares this little GIF where it's got one of these, like a little small domino that hits a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one. Then just by the end of it, it's knocking over this gigantic one. I'm sure many of you have seen this GIF before. I'm like, yep, that's pretty much what happens. This is why you don't let these little rat bastards get away with this crap. You know? It's just, I don't understand the limp-wristed, weak approach to life of, yeah, just let me bend over and take. No, absolutely not. Push back. And it's always best if you can have a civil conversation with adults, but you know, it's not always going to be the case that you're dealing with intellectually honest people, but you still push back. We're in the town square here, effectively. That's what Twitter is. We're in the public sphere. Let's talk about it. Let's share ideas, because there are people from all walks of life with all levels of knowledge of crypto jumping in, been here for a decade, you know, from one end of the spectrum to the other. And in particular for the people that are here and they're newer and they're learning, they deserve to have all points of view readily available to compete with one another. That's the right approach. I just don't get it. If you guys think I'm off base and we really should still shut up, if you think that I wasn't compelling there, okay, that's fine. We can respectfully disagree. Although I would like to hear from you in the comment section below why you think that I and Matt Hamilton and David Schwartz should just shut up and let all these people spread their lies. Because some of these people have massive followings. And it ends up on national television. And you want that type of crap spread out about XRP? I sure as hell don't. And even if you don't want it to be spread, you got to acknowledge that's the end result. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say, right? That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.